Good evening, fellow televiewers, and thanks for choosing G24 to inform you. I am your host for the next 13 minutes. Have a seat and take a look at the summary. Unfair is the term used by Senegalese and South African President Macky Sall on Tuesday to denounce the representation of Africa in the UN Security Council. Also, Germany is turning a page in history with the departure this Wednesday, December 8, after 16 years of Angela Merkel. Olaf Scholz becomes Chancellor of the head of the coalition association, the SDP, and the Ecologists and the Liberals. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will equally be on set with our economist genius from the English desk of G24 to debate about a topic which hits the actuality on Gabon. Now, let's have the jingle. We open in politics. Senegalese President Macky Sall and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Tuesday denounced the unfair representation of Africa in the UN Security Council, regretting that no African country is a permanent member. Let's take a look at the story. The Senegalese head of state said he was in favor of discussions with non-African countries with a view of reforming so that Africa obtains at least 2 seats as permanent members with all the prerogatives of current permanent members. President of Senegal Macky Sall believes that what is certain is that it is unfair that the African continent with 54 countries is not represented as a permanent member of the Security Council. He said, I quote, "With South Africa, with all other countries, we will continue to fight to stop this injustice to Africa." The African continent usually has 2 to 3 non-permanent seats on the Security Council, currently held by Kenya, Tunisia, and Niger. Gabon and Ghana will replace Tunisia and Niger on the 1st of January 2022. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said this is unfair, calling for a permanent representation of the African people. We want fairness. We want Africa to be well represented and to be heard, because it cannot be fair that 1.3 billion people's views and thoughts cannot be heard at the high level in the same way that the views of the countries which have the veto right are heard. Note that the South African leader arrived Monday in the Senegalese capital, where he participated in the Forum for Peace and Security in Africa. World news. Now, you heard it in the headlines. Germany is turning a page in the history with the departure this Wednesday, December 8, after 16 years of Angela Merkel. For the 3rd time in the country's history since the end of the war, a social democrat, Olaf Scholz, becomes chancellor at the head of a coalition associating the SPD, the Ecologists, and the Liberals. Jean-Cyril Ondemunge has the hints.
Olaf Scholz has been sworn in as Germany's new chancellor, bringing to an end Angela Merkel's historic 15 years as leader. He was voted in by the German parliament, where his 3-party coalition has a substantial majority and given a standing ovation. The 63 years old was born in Osnabrück in Western Germany on the 14th of June 1958. At the age of 17, he joined the SPD. His political career began when another social democrat, Gerhard Schröder, came to power in 1998. The newly elected member of the Bundestag became head of the SPD Federation in Hamburg and a member of the party's governing body, serving as its Secretary General from 2002 to 2004.
Furthermore, to what extent South Korea, which is among the countries highly qualified in technology, can contribute to revitalize the quality of education at the University Omar Bongo? The Korean ambassador to Gabon, who was received this Wednesday by the Rectors' Councils of the EUB, came back on the stakes of this cooperation to further participate in the digitalization of this institution. Thibaut Otungu Tabaga tells us more.
The Omar Bongo University wants to renovate. To do so, what better way than to think of integrating this institution into the digital era, a sector that has proved inescapable despite the crisis. Thus, to accelerate the digitization of this first university education institution of the country, and especially not to interrupt academic activities whatsoever the circumstances, Mespen Noel Sumao relies on bilateral cooperation with Korea.
I'm very happy and honored to visit one of the best universities in Gabon, the University of Omar Bongo. We have a very productive discussion regarding how to promote the bilateral relationship in the areas of education. Korea and Gabon have entered into diplomatic tie 60 years ago, and next year we will celebrate the anniversary of 60 years anniversary of diplomatic into tie.
South Korea, which is a fine example in terms of technology, intends to revitalize and boost its cooperation with Gabon, especially in the sector of education.
And the area of educational sector is a very great potential to promote between the two countries, and we could have lots of a program like a scholarship program and establishing the Korean language program as a second language in this university. And we discussed lots of productive programs, and we will promote and work together to realize this cooperation in the areas of education. Thank you.
After the installation of solar panels that would have allowed the university to save electricity, this digitization project will be another step in this cooperation. After this meeting of the Korean diplomat with the administrative authorities of the Omar Bongo University, a seminar will be organized with the participation of students and teaching staff of both countries to better formalize this cooperation project.
Still in Gabon, from education to economy, oil cans, milk cans, bags of rice, smoked sardines, prices on the market in the country are soaring despite the government's willingness to lower port fees. This situation seems to be a success for some commercial outlets, but it is also disrupting households. One has the right to wonder who really benefits from these situations. The answers are given with Yan Leimongoy.
According to the 2021 ranking of the American firm Mercer, Libreville is the third most expensive city in Africa. The Gabonese capital has lost 2 places in 1 year, illustrating the high cost of living. Housing, transport and food are all criteria that underlie this ranking. With regard to food in particular, people are crying out for help, but their cries seem to fall on deaf ears. Every day, prices soar, weighing down the household basket. For example, the price of a can of oil has risen from 4,500 to 7,000 CFA, and a box of chicken legs, which used to cost about 8,500, is now 11,000 or even 12,000. If you go to the markets of Kembo or Montbouet, don't be surprised to find a pile of 3 smoked sardines at 500 francs. And these are just a few examples among many others. One wonders then how the Gabonese can manage to feed themselves with such high prices, especially since many of them only receive the minimum monthly income fixed in the Gabonese Republic at 150,000 CFA. In this context, several hypotheses have been put forward. The most obvious one is that each operator has a say in the price to be displayed on the surface. But when the finger is pointed at them, the operators do not hesitate to clear the name by claiming strong fiscal pressure. All the more so as DGCC controls on the grounds are rare, and when the team do raid, they only have Libreville as the field of action. But what about the interior of the country? Better still, when you call 8085, a toll-free number dedicated to complaints against the high cost of living, it rings free. Who ultimately benefits from the rise in prices when no one wants to take responsibility for it? Who benefits? The state or the economic operators? In the meantime, the people left to their own devices are waiting for a permanent action to stabilize prices and even to lower them.
Furthermore, on the same topic, at the time when the price of basic foodstuffs is rising, the Gabonese people are not on move. Let's listen to some of their reactions to the microphone of Sabrina Koudipenda and Adon Sheki, but also, as announced in the headline, stay seated, because in a fist of seconds, our economic genius of the English newsroom of G24, John Cyril Ondomungu, will come back on set to talk about this important matter. The report.
Here in Gabon, it is difficult to eat. You can go there and the prices go up every day. The chicken you used to buy for 1,200 CFA francs is now 1,500 CFA francs. And tomorrow it will be told that is 1,008. It is not going well. Our country is suffering. We are suffering. The Gabonese people are suffering. Try to see our problems. If you have to buy a bag of rice, it is now almost 20,000 CFA francs for 22 kilograms. A box of chicken is 15,000. We can't afford it anymore. Even with 100,000, you cannot buy anything. With 100,000, you cannot do the market, which will last for the whole month. You cannot do it. For example, I have 5 children. How do I manage with 100,000? Now, in the house, we are 12 people. It cannot work for us. As a mother, it hurts a lot because the resources do not follow. We have to put up with the prices rising all the time, but we don't have a big enough budget to cover for it. And knowing that we have large families, it can only hurt us.
Look, it can only make the population unhappy. It's so far as prices are rising but salaries are not increasing. We are witnessing general inflation, and in fact, the standard of living of the Gabonese is only going down. So it can only make the population unhappy. But it can also be explained because of the pandemic and all other economic aggregates that we don't necessarily control.
We are back on set, ladies and gentlemen, and I am not alone this time. I am with John Cyril Ondomungu, our economy genius of the English newsroom of G24. John Cyril, good evening.
Good evening, Eva.
We heard the Gabonese people complain. Summarily, what do we understand by high cost of living?
High cost of living can be defined as when the household do not have means necessarily to make ends meet, but technically it is when the evolution of prices of goods of consumption is inadequate with the evolution of the salaries of the people or incomes, leading systematically to weak purchasing power.
Another question, what generally leads to the increase of this cost of living in a society?
And at the time when COVID-19 is hitting economies around the world very hard, it is seen that it's not very easy for companies to keep high productivity. And this low of productivity directly leads to inflation, because in economics, it is said that when there is scarcity of products on the market, it causes prices to go upper and upper, causing what we call inflation. But it doesn't mean that inflation really takes us to what we call high cost of living, because when there is a gap between prices of goods on the market and there is an increase of salary, there won't be high cost of living. But when there is a gap between prices of goods and the income of people, there will be high cost of living. And it is to see that Gabon is a small size economy which
and
depends,
a small country as well.
and a small country which hardly depends on imports. It is very difficult for Gabon to really make ends meet, because to take the example on imports from Asia alone, we see that the rate on imports went up to 138%, or $5,000 in 2020, up to 13,000 US dollars in July 2021, without necessarily a parallel increase in salaries.
But what are the solutions you think the government or institutions or even these people selling can bring in order to reduce this problem? Because people are complaining. What are the solutions you think today?
Solutions are the fact that we first must, as I said before, that we depend on imports.
Yes.
And if we do succeed in mastering cost on imports, and we master cost on production, because we see that the inflation goes along the process of production and the process of commercialization of products and goods. If we do master cost, if we do increase our productivity, we can really make hand meet. But there is another point. We got to master the transparency of prices of goods, because we see that at the level...
Up to date, what is done at the level of transparency of...
What is done at the level of the transparency is that the government is trying to put a free call number, you know, that is at the disposal of population to try to be the policeman that will try to follow if retailers do respect the prices of goods
which are homologated by the institution in charge.
Institutions, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much. This information marks the end of this newscast, but before we close, let's review the main headlines together. Unfair is the term used by Senegalese and South African President Macky Sall on Tuesday to denounce the representation of Africa in the UN Security Council. Also, Germany is turning a page in history with the departure this Wednesday, December 8, after 16 years of Angela Merkel. Olaf Scholz becomes Chancellor at the head of a coalition associating the SPD, the Ecologists, and the Liberals. I am Eva MBALLA, your humble host from Monday to Thursday on G24. Thanks for staying faithful to our newscast. Thanks equally to our news director, Richard Songoma, for the direction of this news edition. Next rendezvous of the information at 10:30 p.m. local time. Till we meet again, take care of yourselves. Goodbye.